Joel Klatt thinks that Ole Miss fans should get hyped.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. On today's show, we talk about a November to remember for the Ole Miss Rebels, closing in on what should be a really tough fight against the Mississippi State Bulldogs, just like it always is. But the two games that will be on the tip of everyone's tongue are the home matchups against the South Carolina Gamecocks and Lenora Sellers, and the Florida Gators and DJ Lagway for all of the marbles. Since 2001, every November has been meaningful for the Rebels, and this year should be absolutely no different. But we start out with Fox Sports analyst Joel Klatt naming Ole Miss as his number 2 team, most likely to break through and make the college football playoff this season. High praise and a high bar for Lane Kiffin's squad. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. Do us a favor and like and subscribe and comment on the video. It costs absolutely nothing, but keeps all of this free. So please do that. And if you want a second listen on the network, nearly every college or pro team is available for you to choose from. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets. Win that first $5 bet wins. Really interesting stuff. Joel Klatt put out his top 10 list of the top 10 most likely teams to make their first college football playoff. And I take Joel Klatt seriously because he is not attached to the Southeastern Conference, because he is not attached to ESPN. Whenever he puts an SEC team on a list, he really believes it. It's almost like a evidence of something that you are thinking of. If he has that same thought, you're probably going on the right path. And if you look at his top 10 list coming out, it starts out with Illinois, which that makes no surprise, really. Illinois is kind of the leader in the clubhouse to become this year's Indiana in the college football playoff. Illinois and Brett Bielema ready to go. They actually decimated the South Carolina Gamecocks, and they have a really good quarterback. You might have heard this name, Luke Altmaier, but that's not the part that got my attention. 2 and 3 got my attention, and he obviously thinks Ole Miss is going to win the game against South Carolina because he put Ole Miss over South Carolina as the number 2 team to make the college football playoff for the first time. Ole Miss, in his eyes, is a really good team. He rates Ole Miss. And when you look at the computer rankings, they all rate Ole Miss. When you look at everybody besides journalists that got burned a year ago, putting Ole Miss 4th in the country or something like that, everything rates Ole Miss highly except for that group. Joel Klatt is the first of the burned groups to show up and place Ole Miss in a relatively high position, having Ole Miss as the number 2 team available to make the college football playoff. I like this, and it matches up a lot with my predictions that we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the show. But Ole Miss over South Carolina. They don't have Alabama on there because they've already made the playoff. They don't have LSU on there because they've already made the playoff. Georgia, the same deal. But Ole Miss over Florida. They think Ole Miss is going to win that game, as do I. We'll go over that in just a little bit. But when you look at this list, the only thing that really surprises me is Missouri and South Carolina should probably flip. And the reason I say that is Missouri has likely the easiest schedule in the entire SEC. If they get rolling, if they get off to a good start, if they win the one or like they beat Oklahoma in Oklahoma, if that happens, all of a sudden you could see Missouri really start to take off. They're the team that could surprise. Now, Miami and Carson Beck, I don't know about. Carson Beck was the 1-1 quarterback going into last season. He kind of fell apart. Iowa they don't play offense enough for that. USC, maybe they have a ton of money to spend, but it's all money at this point. Kansas State, they kind of had the North Dakota State model, and they are in the Big 12, which means you cannot count them out. We'll see how that goes. Florida with DJ Lagway, we talked about that earlier, and Nebraska at the bottom of the list, and that's just kind of a Big Ten for Big Ten sake pick. So Nebraska is not near the college football playoff as it sits right now. But Joel Klatt rates Ole Miss. He thinks Ole Miss is going to be good, even though they lost Jaxson Dart, Trey Harris, Walter Nolan, Princely Amon-Mielen. Some big pieces left off of this Ole Miss team. He thinks Ole Miss is going to be a very good team. He said that. He thinks that Austin Simmons will be able to lead Ole Miss to a victory. Now, this is kind of the secret sauce of what's going on. Austin Simmons has the talent and the potential to be a 1-1 level quarterback for Ole Miss, an Eli Manning level of quarterback for Ole Miss. The question for him will be, when he steps in, how does that look? Now, he is a third-year quarterback in this system. He redshirted. Last year, he was the backup, had pretty good numbers as the backup quarterback, better than Eli Manning, Matt Corral, and Romero Miller. But there's always going to be the questions of, will he get confused? And he has the intelligence, as he's already graduated from college. He graduated from high school 2 years early. He has all of that intelligence to where you don't really fool him twice. The way this quarterback is set up, you don't really get him twice. But if you get him the first time at exactly the wrong time, that is the difference between Ole Miss making the playoff and not making the playoff, if we're going to be honest about it. Joel Klatt thinks that with Pete Golding's defense and the defensive line and the front seven of the Ole Miss defense, this team is going to be a very good team over the course of the season. Again, a road game at Georgia, a road game at Oklahoma. Those are the two most difficult games of the season. The most important game is the home game against LSU. You win those games, it starts to look and feel a whole lot different. And if Ole Miss can pick up a win either over Georgia at Georgia or either over Oklahoma at Oklahoma, Ole Miss is in position not just to make the college football playoff, but they're in a position to go to Atlanta at that point. We will have to see. I talked to somebody who was at the Manning Passing Academy, and he said that Austin Simmons was the best thrower of the ball there. It just looked different and looked better. He also said, I'm hard on Arch Manning. He also said that Arch looked a lot better than he has. So we'll see during the regular season of what's going on. Joel Klatt, though, very high on Ole Miss. We'll bring it up one more time. Joel Klatt says Ole Miss is the second number 2 team on his top 10 list to make their first college football playoff appearance, right behind Illinois and Luke Altmaier. Should be pretty good for the Rebels there. Anyway, you always pay attention when somebody that is attached to Fox speaks highly about your team. Joel Klatt likes Ole Miss. He likes Lane Kiffin. He likes what they are building down in Oxford. And because of that, he has them pretty highly situated on his list. Okay, after a brutal October stretch, Ole Miss returns home, likely bruised a little bit, but still in the hunt. With everything on the line against South Carolina, we'll break that all down next. You know, summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about the baseball under the lights, the golf on the green, or the high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even a little more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and even makes regular season games feel like must-watch events. The first game for Ole Miss this season is against the Georgia State Panthers, and Ole Miss is currently a 37.5-point favorite in that game if you're interested in that kind of action. If you're new to FanDuel, don't worry about it. New customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Let's finish up our regular season W's and L's. Tomorrow will be about the postseason. of where it ends up, and we'll talk about that and everything that is going on there. But if you look at Ole Miss in the regular season, they come off of the Georgia and Oklahoma road games with a home game against South Carolina, which means that could be a pretty difficult task, or at least harder than you expect it to be. But Ole Miss beat South Carolina a year ago in the South Carolina Stadium with Lenore Sellers, with the whole 9 yards, 27-3. If that game would have been 8 quarters long, South Carolina would not have scored a touchdown. Ole Miss was by far the better team in that ball game. Now, Lenore Sellers has gotten better, and he didn't have Rocket Sanders that game. We'll see what the South Carolina Gamecocks look like when they get to Oxford. Will Lenore Sellers be that machine? Will he be very Cam Newton-like? Or will he be the quarterback that struggles throwing the football that we saw at a good portion of the last season? Listen, Chris Marler, the host of Locked On Gamecocks, hates the notion that Lenore Sellers struggles throwing the football. He hates it. He will literally want to fight you over that. But the reality is, whenever a big throw had to be made last season, he was not able to do it at all. Now, South Carolina was able to beat Missouri, and maybe he made a play in that game. I forget at the end of it. It was wild. It was crazy, but maybe I forget about it. But against Alabama, against Ole Miss, the image that's in my head is not a very good one throwing the football for Lenore Sellers, like I expect him to get better, no doubt. I absolutely think he will. And with Ole Miss's secondary losses, that could be problematic for the Gamecocks if he takes that step. Now, the question becomes, does he take that step? And I do not think he does. I think that Ole Miss is going to kind of get right in this game. And Ole Miss is going to beat the South Carolina Gamecocks 31-14. And I think this is kind of a propel game, because the next 2 games are at home. There's also an off week in there before the Mississippi State game. And then you go on the road to Mississippi State, who should be 4-8 to 2-10 when that game's played. They're just not very good at the moment. Maybe Jeff Lebby can kind of pull it out of the fire, but we'll see exactly how that goes. In this game, I think Pete Golding is going to have Mike Shula designed up as far as the scheme goes, and South Carolina is not going to be very attractive. Now, they will score a couple touchdowns in this game. Yeah, I'm thinking it'd be something like 17-7 at halftime, and then 2 touchdowns in the second half. South Carolina scores 1. That is the situation that is kind of at our feet. Now, the next game on the schedule is the Citadel, the Bulldogs, the team out of South Carolina. Another South Carolina team back-to-back. This is going to be a blowout type game. This is going to be a game where you hope Malachi Smith or AJ Maddox or whoever wins the backup quarterback job plays most of the fourth quarter, because you need the break after you come off Georgia, Oklahoma, and South Carolina. You hope your starters can sit down. And if you win the game 28-0, you win the game 28-0. Just win the game and move on. If you can do that, if you can handle that situationally, you will put yourself in a better position for the Florida Gators, which is another one of those revenge games like Kentucky and LSU are. But the Citadel, they're going to come to Ole Miss, get their paycheck, they're going to take their beating, and they're going to go home. I think Ole Miss is going to beat the Citadel 55-7. This is a game where Ole Miss kicks a couple of field goals. They score early, they score often, they put the backups in the game, and they are able to rest the starters and get ready for 2 of the most crucial football games in the history of Ole Miss football. If Ole Miss comes out of this game 8-2, Ole Miss has the 2 most crucial games in Ole Miss history because of what they could mean. And that means the playoffs are within reach. Last year, Ole Miss beat down Georgia. They absolutely beat down Georgia. And we thought it was all over. You're going to go down to the swamp and handle Florida. You're going to go to Mississippi. You're going to play Mississippi State and handle them. And you are going to make the college football playoff. Gosh dog it. You know, it was going to happen. Ole Miss got down to Florida. Trey Harris got injured. They started randomly a fifth string wide receiver at running back, and Jaxson Dart had his worst game of the season. You eliminate those three things and you're okay, but you can't eliminate those three things. And Florida was able to get some confidence because of analytics and different stuff like that, and was able to win the football game. And with that, Ole Miss was knocked out of the playoffs. They had to play Mississippi State the next week. They had a short turnaround for that game. But at the end of the day, Ole Miss was out of the playoffs whenever they laid an egg down at Florida. The Florida game is the genesis for my saying at the end of every Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Analytics is the old English word that means bad football. You do not believe in momentum if you believe in analytics, period. Or else you don't go for it willy-nilly at LSU, or you don't go for it willy-nilly at Florida. The LSU and Florida game, Ole Miss was the better team. The Kentucky game was a better team. This is a 12-0 roster that went 9-3 a year ago. This year it's probably an 11-1 or 10-2 roster. But last year was a better, but not by much. I was a 12-0 roster, though. They went 9-3 with a roster that could beat everybody on their schedule. They didn't play well against Florida. They didn't play well against LSU, and against Kentucky was a mess. And all three of them have something in common, and that was going for it inside the 20-yard line. In some cases, multiple times. And you lost one-score games in every single one of those contests. Ole Miss has to play a little bit more straight up. They need to learn how to play as the favorite. If they do that against the Florida Gators, they're going to win. DJ Lagway threw for 1,200 yards or something like that a year ago, but nearly 500 of it was against Samford. Most of their games last season was less than 200 yards passing with DJ Lagway playing quarterback. Now, he's a really good quarterback, and he has the talent to make some absolutely unbelievable throws. I'm just saying, when it came to last season, he didn't show up at all times. He did against Samford, but he didn't show up even against Ole Miss. Now, he made some plays. He's a good player, but he's not quite there yet. Now, the rumor with Florida is about DJ Lagway's shoulder. And the offseason rumors that I have heard being down here in Central Florida is concerning for DJ Lagway, that they waited until after his deadline to have a surgery to make a decision. Will DJ Lagway be the full strength DJ Lagway that we're hoping to see? Or will DJ Lagway have yet another year a little bit hobbled? That will be the interesting question. I think Ole Miss wins this game. I think the defense wins this game. A touchdown late for the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss wins 21-10. Florida's defensive line, Ole Miss's defensive line, both kind of controls the proceedings. The running backs kind of open it up over the course of the game, and Austin Simmons, because of what it means to him, he's going to be able to put together a big drive at the end. So we'll see exactly how it goes. This should be a very, very fun game, honestly. But it's not the last game of the regular season. The last game of the regular season is the game that Ole Miss fans most not want to lose. We'll talk about that and this year's high-stakes Egg Bowl and how it will deliver the same Lane Kiffin trademark, physical high-stakes football. We'll unpack while it never gets old to see that and what to expect next. You know, the last game of the season in the W's and L's, I wanted to give a full segment because the Egg Bowl is important. You don't want it to be important. It is important, though. It's the game on the schedule that Ole Miss fans most don't want to lose. And historically, they win it a lot more than lose, but they still don't want to lose that game. Mississippi State a year ago went 2-10, got beat down by the Toledo Rockets. I almost called them Toledo Mud Hens, but that's just because of baseball. The Toledo Rockets, who put up 41 points in that game. To the staff, Mississippi State didn't necessarily make changes. So we'll see how it sets up. They still have to play Arizona State. That's one of their home games. They play Texas as a home game. They play Georgia as a home game. They play Ole Miss as a home game. And I think somebody else that they have absolutely no business playing. They open up on the road against Southern Miss at the beginning of the season. This season could go off the rails really quickly for the Mississippi State Bulldogs, to the point where mid-October, you just don't care. But the one thing that you can count on, that even if the season goes off the rails, they are going to care about winning the Egg Bowl, because a successful season for Mississippi State is winning the Egg Bowl. It doesn't matter the record of the other 11 games. If you win the Egg Bowl, it was a successful season. And Ole Miss currently has won 4 out of the last 5 in Starkville. They won in 2015. They won in 2017. They lost in 2019. They won in 2021. They won in 2023. 4 out of the last 5, they won those games. The Jaxson Dart game in 2023, he was playing with essentially one arm and still managed to win that football game. Last year, Mississippi State did a good job against him as well. So we'll see if Austin Simmons kind of has that mojo to unlock the Mississippi State defense. Jaxson Dart, for better or for worse, would fall into the trap at times of throwing the ball downfield. He wanted long passes. He was very 1970s Oakland Raiders when it comes to the passing offense. Austin Simmons is much more cerebral with what he does. So I expect Austin to kind of carve them up. I don't want to make the lazy comparison to a certain Alabama quarterback, but I think you're going to see some drop back, plant the left foot, throw the football to Caden Lee, Daquan Wright, Luke Haas, and to the outside wide receivers to open up what's going on. You saw a little bit of that last season whenever he came into the game. It was back foot hits the ground. He knows exactly where he's going with football because he's able to process some stuff so quickly. This game against Mississippi State has a chance to be interesting. If you look at the betting line for that game, Ole Miss is a 15.5-point favorite. The best thing you can do right now is take Mississippi State and the betting line. It's never going to go that high. It just doesn't work out that way. The over-under of the game is 59.5. We'll see how it goes. I guess that's 35 to 20, 40 to 25, something like that. Or 30, I don't know. Something like that. So we'll figure out the betting lines on Mississippi State. The one thing I know for sure is that's too many points for this game. Now, they're not going to be good, and I don't think Mississippi State has a chance to win the game, but that is going to be something to pay attention to. An example of that, I think Ole Miss wins this game 17-7 in Starkville to get ready for the college football playoff. And depending if they get a break or two, they could end up in Atlanta the following weekend of what's going on. I think Ole Miss has a chance to be very good this season, but they have to stay healthy with their big guns. Last year, they had a lot more big guns than they have right now. Last year, they had a situation to where they could afford to lose somebody. But if Suntarine Perkins or Austin Simmons or Deshaun Stribling or those guys go down, there's going to be a little bit of a drop-off. So Ole Miss has to be careful. They have to stay as healthy as they can stay, at least in the biggest game. The players are going to get injured, but you can't have something like Auburn 2021 where all the receivers are out. You have to be injured at exactly the right time. You don't want to be out an offensive or defensive lineman when you're playing the Georgia Bulldogs or the Oklahoma Sooners. It all is going to come down to staying healthy at the right time. And I think Ole Miss has the talent, if they are completely healthy, to make the college football playoff in 2025. And we'll talk about the postseason next week, or tomorrow, actually. If you look at the rankings, I predicted 10-2 for Ole Miss this season. Wins over Georgia State, at Kentucky, against Arkansas, Tulane, and LSU and Washington State. That is 5 out of 6 games in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium to start the season. Then it's road games at Georgia, at Oklahoma. I predicted both of those losses. And then you beat South Carolina at home. You beat the Citadel at home. You beat Florida at home. And then you go on the road and close out against Mississippi State for 10-2. 10-2 should be enough to make the college football playoffs. What did we learn from these predictions? My thought process, I think that Ole Miss is going to be a juggernaut at home. They're likely going to go 8-0 in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. Second, I think the defense will be the difference in some of the bigger games for Ole Miss this season against LSU, South Carolina, and Florida. And three, if I only see one slip up, if you can call it that, against Oklahoma, I think Ole Miss will be favored going up against Oklahoma, and they will end up slipping up in that game. Lots of interesting stuff that you can look at what's going on. Lots of stuff. And that's the regular season W's and L's. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the postseason W's, or W and L. If Ole Miss can make it 10-2 in the regular season, it looks obviously a little bit different in the postseason. Again, the committee is kind of a corrupt bargain because of the attention and opinions of the group of people that was going in, the outside stuff that comes in. The context of it is designed to where it can't be a straight up type thing. Anyway, thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe me, Google Ole Miss Podcast on Google. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment to the show. It is completely free, and it'll keep the show free. Your support means the world to us. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on all of the rapid changes around college football's landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy, everybody, and remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.